Toys R Us, an external factor evaluation.
Hello, my name is Danielle Viss, and I will be doing the external factor evaluation for Toys R Us. The EFE method is a strategic management tool often used for assessment of current business conditions. It is also helpful for visualizing and prioritizing the opportunities and threats that a business is facing. Our group used Trello, Google Forms, and Google Spreadsheets to communicate and make decisions. Now I will tell you what we did and what our results were. On Trello, our first task was to pull factors from our Steeple and Porter analysis. I created a Google Forms for my group members and I to narrow down the top 3 issues from each part of those 2 analyses. For example, this would include top 3 issues for threats of suppliers, threat of substitutes, sociocultural, economic, and many others. We were able to come to a group consensus about the most pressing issues. The next requirement was to label the most important issues as either opportunities or threats. We used the Google Spreadsheets to make this decision. We narrowed down the top 10 opportunities and the top 15 threats. Some opportunities we found for Toys R Us included industry growth in toy sales over the past 5 years, online toy sales, which has increased drastically in the last 10 years, Canadian Toys R Us sales, an increase in video game sales, and finally, our product's quality. Some threats included competitors such as Walmart, Amazon, and other small toy stores, new innovation in the toy industry, the fact that Americans have less discretionary income than they did 20 years ago, Toys R Us cannot borrow money from banks to keep their business going, and finally, Toys R Us's competitors' low prices. The most challenging task, where we had a lot of conversation, was to determine the weights and rankings. Not only did we have discussion on Trello to determine the weights and rankings, each person filled out what they thought the weights should be on a Google Spreadsheets. To each opportunity and threat, we had to assign weights to all of them, which would total up to 1. This was to determine how important each issue was. Next, we had to assign a rating between 1 to 4 to indicate how our firm's current strategy is addressing each opportunity and threat. I'm going to talk specifically about Toys R Us's most important opportunities and threats. Toys R Us, as many people know, went from having a mass amount of debt to liquidation, then to bankruptcy. I'm going to talk first about the threats that led to the inevitable bankruptcy. The 5 threats are true competitors, online sales, debt, social media, and 4th quarter seasonal sales, which were, of course, their Christmas sales. Toys R Us's competitors are mainly Walmart, Amazon, and Target. There are also many other toy stores that have a small portion of the toy industry. Amazon and Target have been stealing away Toys R Us's sales for years. Walmart has been beating Toys R Us on low prices for many years now and have also been stealing customers. Toys R Us tried to compete with Walmart in a price war, which they were never going to win. Walmart is a much larger company and is in many industries. Toys R Us just added on to their debt after this price war. Online sales are a huge threat to Toys R Us. Amazon and Walmart have capitalized on online toy sales much better and much quicker than Toys R Us did. Amazon has listed on their website 5 million toys, where Toys R Us has only around 100,000. It is clear why customers switched. Also, Toys R Us has entered the online sales much later than their competitors, which affected their sales and loyalty of customers. Toys R Us was focused on their in-store experience and tried to get customers to come to their stores when they should have focused on increasing their online presence. The biggest threat in 2016 was when Toys R Us issued their financials at fiscal year end, which showed they had a $5 billion debt. This made shareholders and consumers not trust Toys R Us as a company anymore. After consumers and shareholders became aware of the debt, everyone found out. Social media became a huge threat because on every social media platform, Toys R Us was portrayed as a poorly managed company. No one wanted to shop there anymore, and many customers switched very quickly. The last important threat for Toys R Us was their seasonal sales. After the announcement of the debt, Toys R Us had an awful Christmas fourth quarter season. This showed possible buyers and investors that Toys R Us was a going concern and would probably not survive. That's when Toys R Us began to liquidate, and a few months later, they declared bankruptcy. Toys R Us did not do a very good job at addressing any of these threats. Each threat caused the next threat, ultimately leading to bankruptcy. This indicates Toys R Us had poor execution on all 5 threats. Toys R Us only has a couple opportunities that they can legitimately try to take advantage of, now that they are bankrupt and have no money to spend. First is looking at Canadian Toys R Us sales. The Toys R Us locations in Canada are still very successful, and they still have many loyal customers. The ideal situation would be to look to see if there are still any possible buyers in Canada that would purchase some Toys R Us stores in different U.S. locations. Another opportunity is to try to sell as many assets as Toys R Us can to different toy stores or try to sell inventory to some suppliers. Finally, an advantage of Toys R Us's merchandise is that they are known to have better product quality compared to competitors, so this can be a selling point to different competitors and suppliers. Toys R Us has done a great job in making customers, competitors, and suppliers aware of their superior product quality. It will all depend on if people still want their inventory or if it is outdated and not what consumers want anymore. Other opportunities that Toys R Us should have invested in if they had money were tech-savvy toys, video game sales, and environmentally friendly toys. Toys R Us is in a difficult situation, and it will be very interesting to see what they end up doing. Thank you for listening to our presentation.